morning once again. Welcome to the Baden-Powell Institute and our conversation today about leadership with Brian Williams. My name is Nathan Hopper. I'm the Director of Field Service here in the Buckeye Council. We know many of you are participating from Buckeye as well as many other places, and we're excited. We have more than 800 folks participating in the Baden-Powell Institute this year, which is just very, very wonderful. And we're glad that you're here today for this conversation. I'd like to introduce Brian Williams. Brian is currently serving as the National Membership and Relationships Chair on the board of the National Council. And this is just one of the many roles Brian has served in throughout his scouting career. Brian earned his Eagle Scout Award with Palms in 1971 with the Buffalo Trace Council in Evansville, Indiana. And about 10 years later, he began his adult volunteer career serving the same council as a district membership chair, vice chair, district chair, national jamboree chair, council vice president of district operations, council commissioner, and executive board member. Brian has served on national visitation teams for both Philmont Scout Ranch and the Florida Sea Base. And he continued to serve in scouting at the area level as a vice president and then president. Brian chaired the Lincoln Boyhood Encampment for the National Lincoln Bicentennial event in 2008. He's gone on to serve as the Central Region Vice President for Outdoor Adventure and eventually became the Central Region President, where he was the lead volunteer for Scout Councils in 13 different states. Brian has served on the BSA Camping and Properties Implementation Task Force. He has served at national jamborees in 2001, 2005, and 2010 in a variety of roles, as well as various wood badge courses, and has been the keynote speaker for many colleges of commissioner science and national meetings. Brian's married to his wife, Barbara, and has two sons, Seth and Nathan. And while his list of things that he's done is quite robust, Brian is a scout leader and a scout parent at heart. We're excited to have him here with us today to discuss leadership. With that, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us started.
Well, thank you, Nathan. Good morning, one and all. And I can assure you, despite that list of things that perhaps I've done in the past, there are no more important positions than the one that you have for scouting today. We are very appreciative of all that you have done and all that you will continue to do in your scouting positions. As most all of us know, it's a bit unique to have this sort of forum in which to speak. It's far more preferable to be able to see each other in person, but this works. And that's in part what we're going to hopefully talk about this morning. I'm hoping, while I will make obviously some comments regarding leadership, I'm hoping it's going to spark a little bit of a discussion. I would like to hear from you because the unit leaders, the people that are out there in the field are frankly the most important scouters in our program. You have a marvelous home scouting adventure program that I've looked at there in the Buckeye Council, and I know we have people online that are far more flung than just the Buckeye Council, but I am proud of what your council is doing with regard to home scouting adventures, and perhaps some of you can talk about the experiences you've had with those as we talk about leadership today. Great leadership is dependent upon the actions one takes rather than the position one holds. You know, Nathan rattled off a bunch of positions, you know, that perhaps I've been in over the years, but as I say, there's no more important position than the one you're holding right now. And so when I say it is dependent upon the actions one takes, it doesn't matter whether you're the pack chair or whether you're a den leader. The den leader may actually have the greater impact on our young boys and girls in Cub Scouting than what the pack leader has. And his or her actions are probably more important than that position which he or she holds. And of course, along with that, perhaps as I start, the most important element of leadership is not one's title, one's age, or one's experience. It is behavior. because its behavior is what our young people are going to be watching. It's not unlike parenting. All of us are aware that our young people, our children, have their eyes on us most all of the time. And so our behavior as a parent is modeled and noticed by our own children. We are fortunate, Nathan indicated that Barbara and I are fortunate to have two boys, both of whom are Eagle Scouts. And we're proud of the fact that they've been able to experience the full family of scouting. And we anticipate our first grandchild at the end of May. And the exciting news is that it's going to be a granddaughter. And now I know that my granddaughter can participate in the full family of scouting, just like her father and her uncle have in our family. And so I know all of you have similar stories that you can tell. And perhaps some of those will be able to be told today. But what does leadership behavior look like in the face of unusual challenges? We have the challenge today of just this format. I'm sure the Baden-Powell Institute, in fact, I know it's existed for decades upon decades. And all of you look forward to the fact of being able to meet in person and to share stories in person. We will return to that. But what are some of you, I'm going to just ask, what are some of you doing with the Home Scouting Adventures? How are you bringing that home to both the Cub program and to the Scouts BSA program? Does anybody want to give me an example of what they're doing and the actions they've taken to make that come alive for the youth in the Buckeye Council or any of the other councils around the country that may be participating? Anyone have an example? And you'll have to unmute yourself and introduce yourself briefly and tell us what you have.
Sure, I will. I'm Christine LaRue. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. We are still, we were able to meet in person, but for our PAC meetings, because we know that that would draw a bigger crowd and everybody would be together. The den meetings we can separate outside, but the PAC meeting, we know everybody would be together. So we're still doing those virtually. And so this month we are doing a painting party. So we asked everybody to sign up. We have a local artist that is going to lead all of our scouts through creating a piece of art over Zoom. And so we always do our awards over Zoom, and then we hand them out to them at the next den meeting. But it's just a quick way that we'll just do a drop off of the stuff. It's not going to cost us more than 10 or 12 bucks per kid. And it's just a quick and easy way to get something fun to do and a memorable experience, because that's what we're finding is the problem right now, is how do we create the memories, because we can't do all the activities that we normally are doing. So how can we do something and also use that popcorn money that we had? So that's good too.
Great, Christine. Thank you for sharing that. Very important. And how have you found participation to be? Is it similar to what it would be if we were able to meet in person, or is it has it changed?
We have actually all of our I think all of our scouts are signed up. Plus we offered an option for siblings to pay in a little extra fee and join as well. So we've got several siblings that are signed up. So we're still trying to keep the family aspect of Cub Scouting. And so far all the participation's been good.
Great. And what is your position?
I was the committee chair for several years. My husband was the Cub master. My son has now crossed over, so I am the advancement chair and the popcorn kernel.
The advancement chair and the popcorn kernel. It doesn't matter what title it is, it's what actions you're taking. And that's a fine example, Christine, of it doesn't matter what position we have in scouting, it's the actions we take. Anybody else that would like to say something, an example? Unmute yourself and introduce yourself. It looks like Christine may be the only one courageous enough, as we practice the Scout laws, to say something this morning. Well, secondly, I guess I would also like to say about leadership today, it's all about relationships. Again, that may not be earth-shattering to you. I don't know that anything I'm going to present today is particularly earth-shattering, because we've all been involved in scouting perhaps for a number of years, but it's relationships with parents. It's relationships with other leaders in the pack, in the troop. It's relationships with the sponsoring organization. How do you maintain those relationships in a COVID world? You know, it is important to pick up the phone or to meet via Zoom, and remind the sponsoring organization and the leaders of that may not be part of your unit that you appreciate them. Now, we know nationally we have many units that are not able to meet in person because the sponsoring organization won't allow them into their building. You know, we've heard many examples of that, and I suspect by a show of hands, we might be able to get you to say if that's the case with you. Christine, I'm seeing Joseph Brett, I'm seeing Eric, I'm seeing Miss Kitten, I'm seeing Pauletta. Yes, many of you. So what does that tell us that we need to do? We all are seeing vaccines rolled out. We're frustrated because the younger people may not see those vaccines in their arms until maybe summer or even late summer. That's frustrating. But what do we need to be doing to maintain those relationships so that when we come out on the other end of this, we can get back to normal scouting as quickly as possible? Consider picking up the phone and speaking to someone at the sponsoring organization, saying thank you for the past. We're looking forward to the future. We understand it's difficult today to be able to open up your facility, but we really are looking forward to being able to do that when the time permits. They will appreciate the fact that you've picked up the phone and made that contact. Likewise, parents, while some of you may be able to have the Zoom meetings, you know, all of us as parents, our grandparents, are having the challenges associated with COVID fatigue. And so being able to, maybe you could set up a committee of the pack or of the troop, and you call parents and just touch base with them, see how they're doing. Anything, you know, that the unit can do to be of assistance, because we will come out on the other end of this and we want scouting to return to normal. So those relationships, and then of course the relationships with the youth, they're our most important product. And so to the extent that you can have a conversation via Zoom with your young people, that's good. Or if you have one that the parents tell you is having a particular problem, again, picking up the phone and giving them a call with the parents' permission, of course, may help lift one's spirits of one child that's having a particular problem. And I know, having looked at the brochure, that you're going to have a conversation with another specialist in that area. And if you're having particular problems in that area, don't hesitate to participate in that program that is happening later, because our youth, like us as adults, are having some challenges associated with COVID fatigue. And we all need to talk about how we mitigate those as best we can. Another point, the most important role of the leader is to find and develop other leaders. The most important role of a leader, you, is to find and develop other leaders. And of course, we're doing that hopefully by introducing ourselves, developing the relationships with the parents, trying to figure out who has a special interest in becoming a leader in the unit. Again, it doesn't matter position. It could be advancement chair. He or she has to be caring when we talk to our young people about the advancement that they may have made in the pack or the troop. And so always looking to develop new adult leadership is especially important. I'm curious, any stories out there, any examples that one can give me about your efforts, or when you found a leader that you didn't expect to find that you have then brought into the unit. And right at the moment, I'm talking about adults as opposed to the youth. We'll talk about the youth a little bit later. Yeah, Joseph, did I see you raise your hand?
Yeah, just as an example, recently, my assistant, I'm a Cub master, and my assistant is going to be branching or bridging over with his dad and with his son and stuff like that. So I had to find an assistant, and out of nowhere, one of the parents of a tiger started, posing an interest in everything more than he did before. He was a Cub Scout. He did Boy Scouts a little bit, never went too far in it. And he started posing interest in stuff that's going on. And just as you said before, I started talking to him and getting a feel of what he's into and how he does things and stuff like that. And then I said to him, hey, how would you like the idea of taking over this role as an assistant and stuff like that? And he hemmed and hawed and thought about it and went back and forth. And actually, the other day, he agreed to do it. So, I mean, I agree with you, getting a relationship beforehand and get an idea where they are, because I mean, I know probably a lot of us are running into it, especially with all the COVID going on, is trying to get participation of parents. I mean, my PAC's having a tough time getting parents to participate and stuff like that, but it was really nice to do it. And like I said, I developed a relationship with them and it worked out pretty good.
Joseph Brett, PAC 222. Thank you for sharing that. That's exactly the way it works, is that we have to begin speaking with each other person to person. We all prefer to do that with a scouting coffee mug, but that's not the way it works at the moment. And so we have to do that. And Joseph, you did a fine job with that. Thank you for sharing that. Communication is critical. That's doesn't come as a surprise to any of you. But as we talk about leadership, a leader must effectively and passionately communicate his or her vision and plans. And so Joseph just talked about it. He recruited a parent of a tiger cub, and that was outstanding because they talked about, I'm confident, what they wanted to do with the unit. And so when I say you need to effectively and passionately communicate vision and plans, well, it's natural in a COVID world that parents are hunkered down. I don't know if that's, is that a common experience that we're all having? And at the same time, if you communicate to the parents, here, we're all experiencing this challenge of COVID, but we want to be sure that we continue our young people being able to grow. And the only way we can do that is, here's what I have in mind. Would that work for you and your family? And you have maybe some of your assistant leaders reach out to the parents. Here's what we have in mind. We're going to do this video Zoom PAC meeting. We're going to have the troop meeting outside at this location, but then we're going to do a Zoom court of honor. And here's what we have in mind. Give us your ideas. Does that work for your family? And you will get feedback. And they may say, oh no, our daughter, our son is really COVID fatigue, that's my term, for Zooming all day because our school is still virtual. Or we've chosen in our family to have a virtual experience for school until we can get past COVID. And so I think he or she is just worn out from looking at the computer screen. I can understand that. How do we make it fun? And frankly, as I say, the home scouting adventures that the Buckeye Council has is a fabulous resource. And for those of you that are outside the Buckeye Council, I think this will at least introduce you to the fact that you can get these materials for your own unit in your own council. The Buckeye Council makes those available, and I'd certainly urge you to do that because there's some pretty neat material that's available there. And the expense is not that significant. I think it's $10 or $12, and most of us can afford that. And certainly if there is some situation with a family where there's special need, again, communicate, identify that, and then work with the home council to be sure that that family gets to participate in a meaningful way if they are challenged financially, because that's important. You know, and of course, how much more critical is communication when in-person opportunities are limited? It's mandatory. We, you know, here today, it's harder to communicate, even though I see a, you know, many faces. It is harder to communicate than when we are in one room together. We're all learning how to do that in a way we never imagined a year ago. But at the same time, it is mandatory that we continue to either speak by video call. I'm hoping many of your families now have experienced Duo or any of which of course is a Google product, which you can video phone. You know, and so there's many ways that families are now beginning to communicate. And in fact, if some of those technologies are new and you have a resource in your unit, maybe one of the programs you offer for the family is how to communicate in this COVID world. What are some of the different softwares? I mean, all of us are struggling with learning how to use the new technology. So while that may or may not be specifically an award that one can earn, it is certainly something that's important to our scouting families to all share with each other how we are communicating, and teaching or talking to each other about various technologies or software that they've used and which ones they like and which ones they don't. All of us, I think, continue to struggle with that. And inevitably, it's going to be one of the younger people in the scouting unit that's going to be talking about communication and how to use the technology, because it's the young people who understand it better than my generation. So again, that communication is critical. I'm going to ask a question, and I want to see, I want some response. What is the best way to learn leadership? Any thoughts? Yes, Miss Kitten, turn your mute off.
Best way to learn leadership is to follow.
Is to follow? Okay, good, thank you. Other thoughts? And I'm not seeing everybody, so don't be afraid to, on my screen here, so don't be afraid to unmute and respond if you have one.
I would say one of the best ways to learn how to lead is to learn by doing.
Excellent. Scoutmaster Linda, thank you for that. Other thoughts?
I think by example.
Pauletta, thank you. By example. Learn leadership by example. That's another excellent way.
By
Other
watching
thoughts?
others.
Megan, thank you. Watching others, I agree. Obviously,
Wood badge course.
I'm sorry, I'm Mike Clark. Okay.
Enroll in a wood badge course. It teaches leadership very well.
Couldn't agree with you more. Wood badge is very important. And you have materials here. If you're not familiar with wood badge, ask around. You'll find scouters that have gone through the wood badge course. There's material in here about wood badge. I agree, Mike. That's an excellent idea. Other thoughts?
I think some of it's just through trial and error.
Eric, I agree with you. Eric Cornell indicates that you just got to go do it. All excellent points. Joseph?
I would just say examples of what we're doing right here today. Different, not so much online, but even in person. You know, the BPI is an example of one of them. Any kind of courses you can take to help you learn things from other people, as well as people that have done it for a long time.
Anyone else? I agree with you, Joseph. Excellent.
Communication and your roundtable meetings, just bouncing ideas off one another.
Scotty, that's exactly right. And of course, in the COVID world, we learn around the country that many roundtables are being done virtually. In fact, in certain instances, attendance is better at a virtual roundtable than in person because you don't have the travel time involved. So Scotty, that's exactly right. I agree with that. Anyone else?
We're always going to do both from now on, to have meetings in person if we can, and do the Zoom meetings along with it, because we had our best attendance.
Kimbra Schneider, thank you. I think that's correct. This is an aside, but since a Scout is reverent, many of us probably participate in church services, and now it's probably going to be the standard as well that church service is going to be in person and virtually for many of us. Other ideas?
We've had to go to mostly virtual. We've recently combined 2 districts into one, and we're spread out from the lower end to the upper end. We're 1.5 hours away from each other. So we've had to go to a lot of virtual, with about once a quarter having that in person.
Okay, I trust everyone heard that. Scotty indicated that they've merged 2 districts and the geography is broad, and therefore they've had to do a bit of both, where the virtual only makes sense because of the travel time involved. And I think that's exactly right. We have nationally, well, one, in Ohio, you've had some merging of councils. We could talk about that if you like. But more importantly, we now have, as scouting changes, and this is not intended to talk about national scouting, but we're seeing the change in national scouting that I will say is similar to, if in the past you've viewed scouting as a triangle, I would say now with the changes that are coming, we're trying to invert that triangle, where all of the units may have been on the bottom of the triangle, and we've got a chief scout executive at the top. Everything that I'm seeing is going to invert that triangle, so that the most important part is the top of the triangle, which is where all the units are. That's what's important. And everybody underneath is serving only to support those units and those youth. And I'm excited about what I'm seeing that will come later in 2021 to bring that support to councils, to districts, and then ultimately to the units, because that's where the most important service needs to be. I appreciated all those comments. I think the best way to learn leadership is having frequent opportunities when you are young to practice being a leader. And that's why all of you are here. Not only are we learning leadership through, as Mike Clark said, as adults, we become better leaders through programs like Wood Badge, programs like this, but the best opportunity to learn leadership is frequent opportunities when you are young to practice. And isn't that what we do in scouting? At the Cub Scout level, obviously it is more adult-led, parent-led, because of the age of the young people. But all of us know, and in fact, the Wood Badge program presents it in a very clear way, that in essence, through the Wood Badge program, you go through the scouting program. And you at the Scouts BSA level, of course, we're now teaching young people, giving young people the opportunity to experience leadership positions. And of course, they have success and they have failures. Both are equally important. And it is how we learn through those successes and failures about what our leadership style might be. And of course, you as the adult leader or the parent, getting back to my first choice, or my first point, was that leadership is dependent upon the actions one takes. And it is those actions where you are supporting that young person in his or her leadership role in the background. You know, I can remember as a youth, one of the things that we worked for in the troop was to be sure that our adult leaders all could just sit in a rocking chair the entire meeting, and that we would practice our leadership styles. We didn't need them to tell us what to do. And the only time that the Scoutmaster got out of his or her rocking chair was for the Scoutmaster minute at the end of the meeting. That would be a successful meeting for a scout troop. And so that's what all of us, I think, are trying to encourage. I would urge you in this COVID world to be sure that your young people, especially in the Scouts BSA program, that those young people get to try leadership via the virtual world, because that is the world that they're entering. And having success and having failure at leadership experiences through a virtual learning environment is very, very important. I'm sure we have a bunch of teachers online today. God bless you. I can't imagine anything more important than our teachers and their having to learn an entire new way to present materials to their class in a very short period of time. Perhaps there were a few people out there, but wow, talk about a changed world a year ago when teachers had to figure out how to engage their students virtually instead of in person. I respect and admire you. And in our scouting program, think about the opportunities that we can give our young people in our scouting programs to likewise learn what teachers had to learn in spades, if you will, a year ago. Give our young people an opportunity to experience leadership through this virtual world, which will not go away even after we get on the other side of COVID-19. They need to have the opportunities to experience leadership with failures and with successes, and to talk about those. And I would urge you to do that. Any other comments or experiences that people have had? Giving their young people an opportunity to experience leadership in a virtual world. Yeah, that one may be a challenge. That one may be a challenge. I want you to think about that. You know, be sure your SPL and the troop, be sure your patrol leaders have an opportunity to, you know, we just struggle setting up the Zoom meeting and being able to be the host and being able to, you know, switch that around. All of those things our young people need to experience. Okay. Another point. A leader's goal is not perfection. It really isn't. A leader's goal is to know where they are imperfect or where they are weak, and leverage the strengths of the team members to fill those gaps. Okay? All of us have strengths and weaknesses, and it is important for us to know where we are strong and where we are weak, and to try to be sure we utilize the resources of the group to fill those areas where we may not be strong. So, as an example, I suspect many of us in this Baden-Powell Institute don't feel particularly strong in technology. We're at least all online here, but the opportunity to find the technology nerd in our community is there. And of course, as I began, it may not be the person with the highest position, or may not be the person who's the oldest among the group. And so again, as we communicate and create relationships with each other, who's our technology person who can help our unit in the best way possible? I'm seeing from Aaron Dirth. He's the nerd and proud of it. So Aaron, what can you tell us about why you know so much about technology and why it's important for us to search you out so that you can share with us your knowledge?
Well, I know so much about technology because my grandmother started me when I was a child, right, as young as our cubs are now. When I first asked to get a computer and asked to play on a computer, she told me, no, you will learn a computer and then I will let you have one. You will not just play on one. So she got me a Radio Shack PRS 80 and got me a book, and I got into BASIC and programmed my first game and then played it. And I've been a nerd ever since.
Outstanding. And Grandma made that happen. I'm getting from Darcy Becker, SBL has taken over running meetings in one of my units that I'm commissioner for, sets up the meeting. That's outstanding. You want to offer us a little bit more on that? But I think her comment, at least in the chat session, if you can unmute, if you want to add a little bit more to us for that, that'd be fabulous. But that's the point. The SPL is the leader that sets up the meeting. I'm getting from Christine LaRue. It flashed on and off, but said the same was going on in her Scouts BSA troop, where it's the girls troop. I'm getting one message too that the audio doesn't seem to be working on there, so they're not able to chime in. But I did see your chat, and thank you for that. So we do have, and Josh, I see you've come on here. Do you want to offer something? Josh,
yeah. My name's Josh. I'm a Cub Master here at a small pack in Central Ohio and Columbus. And when COVID happened, we invested a great deal in our virtual academies within our pack website. And we found it a really pivotal point of being able to help our scouts continue moving forward. And then I think I put a few things in the chat, and I'm not plugging our website specifically, but I'd also like to see if anyone else has their own website and their own academies, just to kind of to look around. But we were able to get some personal messages from local kind of quote unquote celebrities to kind of do a personal message to our scouts. Again, we're a small pack. And we found it very helpful. And we have an academy for the Cub Scouts. A lot of the videos that we use are from other talented scouts from across the nation and the world. We did create some of our own. But then we found that some of our scouts needed to be challenged a little bit more. And so we had to beef up and create a STEM Nova Academy as well. So it can be done, and you don't have to have like a complete tech background. If you can find someone, like you're saying, within your community who can help with that, and you can reach out to me as well. But our PAC website is pack3128.com.
pack3128.com. pack3128.com. pack3128.com. So Josh Counselor, thanks for sharing that. Many of you will be able to get into the chat session and perhaps pick up on some of the information that's there. Since I'm leading this opportunity, I'm less able to get into the chat session to read that. I'm seeing, at least on mine, that there are 51 comments in there. Some of that may be simply communication, but all of you may want to try to get in there and see if there's a resource that would be useful for your unit. What Josh was asking us in part was, are there other units that that have websites? So I'll just ask that. Are there others out there that have websites? And why don't you unmute briefly and share those with us? Okay, well, maybe the one pack is unique. I know I have seen some, and I obviously know with the Buckeye Council that their Home Scouting Adventures is a excellent resource, so I'd urge you. I see Nikki Martin is telling us that our SPL set up a Google Classroom for his troop. Very good leadership experience there. We are so proud of him. He posts Jeopardy games for our scouts to learn interesting facts. It posts all of the things that they are working on and what events are happening. This is with Troop 106 out of Bucyrus, Ohio. So that's excellent. Learning how to set up a Google Classroom sounds like an outstanding opportunity to learn, provide leadership. And then that SPL, of course, is engaging the scouts in the troop and the Scouts BSA for doing that. That's Troop 106 out of Bucyrus, Ohio. So you can communicate with Nikki Martin and find out perhaps a little bit more about that. We have Aaron Dirth, who of course spoke earlier, says we haven't needed a local website as we are in Buckeye Council, and Nathan Hopper and the council has already set the bar pretty high. And Aaron, I agree with you. I've been trying to advance that home scouting advantages. And from what I've seen, I agree with you. The Buckeye Council has set that bar pretty high and has some really exciting materials on there for young people. So I think that's true, but I think we can also perhaps, as was the case with the Google Classroom, urge some engagement within the units for that. I have from Christine LaRue that her girl troop, the SPL, does all of the breakout rooms, sends out the Zoom links, etc. So we're seeing some very good leadership there. Lee Peters is saying, I've seen more Facebook groups than websites. Facebook is free and somewhat easier to maintain. So there in Lee Peters' case, they're doing it through Facebook. Again, leadership, action. Taking actions to make these things come to pass. That's a true leader, not position, not age, but taking the actions to make these things happen. Let's see. Lisa Scopel says Scout Sunday is also an opportunity at your place of worship to promote scouting. And of course, that's always been the case. So we know that Scout Sunday is upon us. So it may be a little bit of a challenge to make that happen if you haven't already made those arrangements. But certainly it is an opportunity, whether your worship service is virtual or whether it's in person or whether it's both, it is an opportunity. Steve Jackson says active participation in the Order of the Arrow is another opportunity for leadership, and I couldn't agree with you more. Of course, to enter the Order of Arrow, hopefully they've provided some leadership to the unit to get selected, and of course the Order of the Arrow is also an opportunity. I'm seeing Scout from Scotty, Scout University and Commissioner Colleges are good leadership tools also. Couldn't agree with you more. Our leadership core is, frankly, in my humble opinion, our unit commissioners are perhaps more important today than they ever have been in the 111-year history of our movement. You say, well, why do you say that, Brian? And the reason is communication. You know, one of the points that I've made over the last 45 minutes or so. So I think it's about time for Nathan Hopper to tell me if there's anything else that needs to be said before you move on to the next. But the unit commissioner, how many unit commissioners do we have on? I'm just curious. I see Agnes, I see Scotty, I see Scoutmaster Linda, I see Darcy Becker, I see Patrick, I see Lee Peters, I see, if I didn't call your name, I apologize, but I see a lot of unit commissioners on there. Why are you more important today than in any of the 111 years of our history? Because of communication. As unit commissioners, we need to be making contact. Again, it may not be in person, which is what we prefer, but we need to be communicating with those unit leaders to provide them information like we're having now, to discuss with the unit leader, are they able to meet at the sponsoring organization location? And if they are not, which is the case a number of places across the country, have discussions with them about alternatives. We are seeing, for instance, malls, providing empty space for units to meet in. They can spread out in an empty retail space so they can be properly distanced, but they can at least meet in person. And the mall is happy to open it up because they're happy to get somebody in the door that might go to one of the retail spots, and they're able to offer that for free. So it's one of the areas that we've seen nationally where we're trying to figure out creative ways for units to meet in person, but yet safely in a COVID world. And unit commissioners touching base with each of their unit leaders that they're responsible for can hopefully gather the information for the council, but also creatively provide leadership for solving some of these problems. So questions, answers. Any questions for me? I'm seeing from Mylene Pablo Dyke that her troop SBL has been running their meetings since April, and they've been using Zoom, using an app to chat with one another. Our female troop planned and hosted their first virtual winter camp and invited their brother troop to attend. It was a success, and it might be something that they are planning on doing again. So good. That is outstanding. That's the kind of leadership we want to see. Scotty? Be sure to unmute. Yep, thank you.
The one thing that I wanted to comment on is, as a leader, you should always be training your replacement. That way the meetings are operating just like you were there when you're not, and there may be a time that when you have to move on to something else and it's time for someone to take over. You should always be working on training your replacement.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent, excellent point, Scotty. And for those of you who may have missed it, his point is you should always be training your replacement. We call it right side, left side. Think of being in a truck, and the drivers in most countries is on the right side and or on the left side, and then they've got somebody in the passenger seat on the right side. So you're training someone all along, and of course that is one of the best models is to make sure that happens. Thank you, Scotty. Other comments, questions? I will say that on a national level, very briefly, there is a lot of effort going on flipping that triangle and reorganizing. And what you're going to see is what we call scouting territories, and they are going to be set up to support your council, to move your council, to move the districts up to service to the units. And I'm excited about that change that's coming. I think you'll see some major differences, and that'll be good. And so, Nathan, that pretty well does it for me. I hope that's been helpful to everybody. Thank you for what you continue to do for scouting. It's exceptionally important. And as I say, the position you're in today is the most important for supporting scouting, and I appreciate what you do. Nathan?
Thank you, Brian. Thanks so much to everyone for participating. I find it very special that we're able to have someone of Brian's experience and his current service to scouting on the National Council Board of Directors take his time to spend with us to talk about leadership today and to go into the office on a Saturday morning where he is in Evansville to be a part of this. We really appreciate that, your comments. And thanks to all for being a part of BPI. You may have heard me talk about this on the first live engagement that we had. Brian showing off his swag there. We have loads of content for you to explore on the virtual campus. There's several more live engagements coming up today. Check out the calendar for those to participate. If you miss one, we have some that are going on at the same time. They're being recorded just like this one is. And that'll be uploaded back to the site for people to view. You've got access to all the content for 60 days. And the live engagements today represent only about 5% of all the information that's there. So go and explore, click on everything, check out what's there in all the different parts of the campus, take those courses, find resources, bring those back to others that as you see fit to help us continue, not just to sustain or survive in this environment, but rather to really build and to thrive. And we hope that you'll be able to find that to your benefit and your success. My thanks again to Brian. I'm sure we'll see others of you later today on our other conversations. And if not, we hope you enjoy everything that BPI has to offer. Have a great day.